How's it going, everybody? My name is Miles Dalmasa. I am a solutions engineer, one over here at DocuNav Solutions. So I'm actually the one who actually builds the kind of stuff, the forms process, workflows, anything that kind of thing in the background for all of y'all. And today we're going to be talking about all the new fun things that Laserfiche 12 has to offer. All right. So kind of a brief overview right here. These are some of the topics we're going to go over. We're going to be talking about the Systems Admin Hub, the simplified deployment that comes with Laserfiche 12, some of the identity management updates that have been made, the metadata designer that is available in the web client, the forms test mode, as well as the new modern installer that simplifies the deployment for all you when we go ahead and run upgrades for you guys. So similar to that, just brief overview. The metadata enhancements have to do with the actual metadata designer that comes with the Laserfiche web client. We're going to go over that a little bit more in detail later in the presentation, as well as with the test mode for the forms process, as well as Admin Hub. So obviously, one of the main updates that Laserfiche has done with the implementation of 12 is a bunch of UI refreshes. Previously, if you guys have been in and around Laserfiche, everything used to be orange. Now everything is blue with all different kinds of desktop application updates, as well as just a bunch of UI refreshes from day one of the launch. So brief overview on the timeline. Laserfiche 12 was uh, released on end of 2024 with the major spring and fall releases continuing through 2025, and hopefully we're gonna have everything by 2026. So a sneak peek into the metadata enhancements. As you can see here on the image right to the right, we have the actual metadata viewer. So this is actually a snapshot from the web client. So if many of you guys are familiar with what it looks like to actually view a document, you can see on the left is a display pane for the actual document, and on the right is the actual fields pane. We'll go into it a little bit more in depth later, but as you can see, there's many changes that were made to the actual way that you can view the metadata. So it sort of looks like a little bit like Laserfiche Forms, and it is a lot easier to interact with, and it's, in my opinion, a lot more intuitive as well. Instead of just being a top-down view of all the fields that are available for the actual document, you can actually organize it in a more tabled structure. So it's easier, a lot easier to digest, easier to actually interact with the metadata, and it obviously reduces mistakes when entering, as well as you have some other functionality with this being more of like a forms process with things such as dynamic show and hide rules, which we'll show a little bit later. So a little sneak peek into the actual forms test mode. This is actually a brand new feature that is brought with Laserfiche 12, and this is one of the things I enjoy the most, especially when I'm building forms processes on the back end. So essentially what this is the test mode is a isolated instance of the form that you can actually run, where you can take control of a lot of the um, backend stuff. So all of the user task assignments, anything from email addresses that are sent or that are set, and any saved repository tests, you can actually modify that, and you can test your forms processes while they're live, while they're in production, and it opens up a whole new avenue of things you can do with forms processes. So as for actual upgrades and installations for Laserfiche 12, they've actually streamlined the process a bunch, which makes y'all's lives easier, our lives easier when we're actually running upgrades for you guys or just initial installations. They've put everything into one single installer. Um, as you can see on the right on the screenshot right here, this is actually what it looks like, and it's super intuitive. It gives you the name, description, installed version, available version, as well as any release notes that you want to look at for all the Laserfiche applications that are available with 12. So you can actually go ahead and identify what you want to download. So say, for instance, specifically in the screenshot, we have Laserfiche form selected with the checkbox on the right, and it will actually auto-select all the necessary applications that have to do with forms. So you don't just have to go searching for, oh, I need this, I need this. It'll all be centralized right here in one place. It also will it will download all the background information. So instead of having to go and download all the Microsoft applications that are necessary for some of this stuff to work, some of like those files that are necessary for some of the Laserfiche applications to run, they will actually automatically download those as well. So for the admin hub, this is actually a super cool feature with Laserfiche 12. It was available on release. We have run into some some problems and some bug fixes with it. But once it is up and running, hopefully in 2026, we're going to get the full release with everything working as intended. Yeah, once this gets up and running and it's bug free, this will actually be like your one-stop shop to basically know everything that you need to know about your Laserfiche environment. So this combines everything from the server health as well as any problems that you can see throughout the environment. So basically it centralizes your error handling. So anything to do with application logs, you can look through between the servers all in one place to quickly troubleshoot stuff like that. As well as just look at like server performance. If one place is not running as intended and another place is, you can kind of see that all in one centralized place. For the actual identity management stuff, we have seen major improvements to the use of SAML and Laserfiche. So they previously in 11, it was possible to use stuff like Skim and SAML as well. But with 12, we have more improved functionality with LFDS and linking with your identity providers like Azure and stuff like that with Skim settings and group memberships provisioning over from your actual SAML identity providers. So that's super nice, and it streamlines SAML a bunch, makes it a lot easier to set up, test, and implement, basically. So kind of doing a quick overview of some of the additional features. In the actual web client, we have, just for easier navigation, we have an integrated app picker that makes it super intuitive to migrate throughout your Laserfiche environment, get from forms to web client, all that kind of stuff. It's all centralized in one place. On the administration side, we have LFDS user automation with stuff like SAML, stuff like Skim. Makes it super easy to push users, integrate users, that kind of thing, as well as some forms processes with they give you some more control with specific holiday options and flag test data, as well as with the admin hub when it is fully released and working. You will have way easier system insight and just a better overview on your system and how it uses its data and stuff like that. Kind of what I talked about earlier with the installer, the deployment is much simpler. These upgrades that we've been doing for 12 for a lot of clients has gone a lot smoother. That's with the in-place upgrades as well as the migrations. The upgrade to 12 has been pretty seamless, not too many problems there. So going on to the Laserfiche 12 timeline, as we can see, all of the major applications here were released at the end of 2024. So that was all the big ones, the web clients, the forms, workflow, the actual Laserfiche server, LFDS, admin hub and the desktop admin, and desktop clients as well. So you can expect those whenever we actually go ahead and run those upgrades, run those migrations, those are all there. Spring 2025, we got the desktop client snapshot scanning and then more upgrades to the actual API server when you're actually calling the Laserfiche API, as well as what we can do with APIs through workflow. Fall of 2025, we got things like Audit Trail, the DCC, the connector, web link upgrades, as well as some upgrades to Laserfiche Mobile. And then in 2026, we are hoping to have, or sorry, not hoping, we're going to have import agent, email archive, updates to quick fields, the quick fields agent, as well as something called smart fields, as well as some integrations with DocuSign and Boomi connector. One cool thing that comes with Laserfiche 12 is the addition through the Laserfiche support site of 15 live on-demand webinars you can actually go through and look through and watch yourself. So I have them all listed here on the right from their website. So you can actually go through and look at preview demos. You can see some of these features that we're talking about right here in an actual like live demo format. As well as just if you want to look through, see what comes with it, you can see demos of the metadata enhancements as well as the test mode that we talked about a little bit earlier and that we're going to talk about a little bit more later. And just kind of get an overall view of what Laserfiche 12 has to offer. All right, so now we're going to jump into a deeper dive of the actual Laserfiche 12, some of the enhancements that we talked about earlier. So we're going to start with the metadata enhancements. All right, so kind of how we talked about earlier, this streamlines how you actually interact with repository and document metadata in the web client The actual creation of these is pretty streamlined, pretty easy to interact with. It is similar to Laserfiche forms, so if you guys have actually interacted with Laserfiche forms at all before, it's pretty similar to that. The actual layout, the ability to drag and drop the fields, as well as have many different kinds of field types. So as you can see on the right, we have things like this is the actual template dropdown. You have different single line fields right here, as well as multi-line fields. And one big thing that I actually like just for the organizational part of it is, as you can see right here, we actually have a text field right here, which is a custom HTML field. So you can do a lot of kind of things with that, with obviously reminders for metadata, filling out metadata, as well as if you want to do links and stuff like that, you can do stuff like that as well. The introduction of radio buttons into your metadata is actually super nice, as well as checkboxes. One big option that we also gained, sorry for noise in the background, apologies. We have the opportunity of the others field. So for specific radio button and checkbox options, you have the option to have a third in quotes other field where basically, you know, if none of the options match, you can actually implement that into metadata still. Another big part of the new metadata enhancement designs are the ability to have dynamic fields. So just like with forms, if you guys are familiar with that, you can have field rules, which is basically the ability to show and hide a field based on certain conditions that you set on the actual metadata fields itself. So one thing that I like to explain for this is, so say you have a specific document type for a specific student at a specific campus or something like that. Based on conditions of what the school type is or what school it is, you can have certain metadata fields hide and show, and in that ways it can be dynamic. It just adds a lot more customization to the experience of looking at the metadata, filling out the metadata. It's a lot more intuitive than just the top to bottom that I will show you guys on the next slide. It's just overall cleaner and faster overall. So just as an example, here, as you can see on the screenshot on the left, this is what the old metadata viewer looked like in the web client. Everything was top to bottom versus on the right with Laserfiche 12, you can see that we have the new designer where you can actually put fields next to each other. You have the custom HTML fields, the radio buttons, that kind of thing. It's not just text fields and date fields and stuff like that. You can actually have a lot more customization and options to interact with the actual metadata. So just like I talked about earlier, this is just about an easier screenshot to kind of show this other section right here. You see on the right, we have a checkbox option with this other field right here. So say, for this example here, there was reps involved with this document, Alex and John were, but for instance, there was someone else who wasn't in this actual checkbox list. You can actually go ahead and specify that other person here, and they'll save with the metadata as well. Overall, the new metadata enhancements and the metadata viewer brings the power of Laserfiche forms into the actual repository and the viewing experience that you actually have with the metadata while interacting with the documents in Laserfiche. So here's actually a little video, a quick demo of what the actual metadata viewer editor looks like. So if any of you guys are familiar with forms, this looks a lot like forms. You have on the left side right here, you have the actual toolbox where you have your different fields that you can actually drag and drop onto the actual metadata fields pane, as well as on the right you have the your actual details pane where you can actually adjust the options, the names, the fields, that kind of thing, as well as the rules. So in this video, it'll quickly kind of give you a taste of what it would look like. So this just shows where you can drag and drop the different fields and stuff like that, as well as on the rules tab. So the field rules actually look very similar to forms and how they work and interact with the actual form. So if you've worked with forms at all, it's pretty intuitive on how to actually run those show and hide dynamic field rules. Quick overview on the metadata enhancements in the metadata viewer. Basically, you get a ton more customization that you have when it comes to how you actually interact with the metadata in the repository. You have the additions of checkboxes, radio buttons, as well as customize other options, as well as the ability to have dynamic fields. with the actual viewer itself. Everything's a lot more intuitive. You can have custom layouts that are a lot better for everything, as well as if you want to keep everything the same how it was before with the top-down view, you can do that. You don't have to necessarily use this custom edited viewer, but it's an option that is there if you want to use it. All right, so now we're going to talk about the Forms test mode, which, in my opinion, is the biggest update that we've gotten to Forms in a while, and the one that I personally, as an engineer, use the most. So as you can see on these screenshots right here, this is actually what it looks like to create the test rules. So with Laserfiche natively, you have 3 main test rules that you can create. So that is for the email address tasks, any user tasks, as well as the saved to repository tasks. So as you can see right here, this is an example that I took from a form that I'm building currently. And as you can see, I set all of the email addresses to be my email. So when I actually run this form, all the emails that would be the task reminder emails, that would be email tasks themselves, they would go all to my email. Same thing with the user tasks. I would set it to the account that I'm signed in as. You can set these to initiator. You can set these to any account that you want to. You have full customization. If they have forms access, you can set them to this. And what this does is basically it reassigns all of the tasks that are in the test instance to the account that you set here without actually changing them in the process diagram. So what I like to do for this is say I have a live process that I'm working on, I'm troubleshooting and making updates to. And obviously this user task is set to this teacher, this user task is set to superintendent or something like that. I don't have to touch those at all. I just have to go into my test rules and set those the user task assignments to me, which basically assigns them to me when I run them in test mode. So it gives you the options to troubleshoot these forms live without actually having to make big modifications. Because previously, if you wanted to run a test on Laserfiche forms, you would have to go in and set everything to yourself or whoever was actually testing. And now you can just bypass all of that and just set the actual user tasks to the account that you want to test with. Another big rule that you can set is actually you can replace all the saved to repository tasks. So similar to the actual email tasks and user tasks, you can leave the save to Laserfiche services or tasks alone, and you can actually set a custom landing spot for all the forms to go and all the attachments. So for me, this is huge for when I'm troubleshooting forms. I can actually go in and, if I'm running a test on a live form, I can set all the test instances from the test modes that I'm running to just like this in the ZZ Work queue, a ZZ process, a test process folder. So that, is outside of all of the automatically picked up files that come with our filing workflows and stuff like that. So I can keep everything isolated, and it makes everything easy to troubleshoot because everything's in one centralized location and I don't have to worry about, hey, I ran a test instance and our filing workflow picked it up and I have to go find that document now. It's all in one place. This also makes for super easy cleanup. So say that we are running a bunch of tests and obviously we set everything to funnel into one folder. I can go in and actually delete that folder once we're done with testing, or just do what you need to do with those documents. They're all in one place and isolated, which is super nice. So the whole point of this forms test mode is keeping everything isolated, not cluttering your forms database or any of your forms reports with test data. Everything stays outside of that. And it just makes everything easy to troubleshoot. You don't really have to worry about downtime on forms because you can just do all the testing with a test mode. And you also have the opportunity to, on a live form, have someone try it out themselves using the test mode and not clutter any of your databases with any of the forms data or your repository as well, with any of the test data that comes with submitting the forms. So another big thing with the test mode as well is when forms in a test mode interacts with workflow, you actually have the option to create a conditional in the workflow where workflow recognizes that, hey, this form called upon this specific workflow in test mode. So I'm going to run a specific path that was specified in the workflow as a test mode condition. So what you can do with this is, say you had a processing workflow or something like that, but you were testing a change before you wanted to actually make it, and it was live formed. What you can do is you could create a copy of that workflow tree path inside the actual workflow and you'd actually be able to copy and paste it over, but set that condition to only run this specific branch when the form comes from test mode. So that allows you to do anything. You can change conditions, you can change variables, you can change how the actual workflow works. Say you were working with test data, you can have that run specifically down that path. Any conditionals that you want to change, you can do that as well. Any documents that were created, saved, that kind of thing, as well as say you were working with an API and that workflow is calling an API, you could have it only in test mode, hit the specific endpoint, or basically anything you want to do. It creates basically the same thing as in Forms an isolated test environment. You can go and try stuff out, mess with it, and not worry about breaking your actual live processes. I think this option for Laserfiche 12 has been the biggest thing for me. This is the thing that I use the most, and it has been great. I really love this improvement. That's a quick overview of what has been happening with Laserfiche 12, all the new enhancements. So we're going to open the floor to questions.